strikes shores. But what if it wasn't the Earth? What if it was HAARP, that highly secret microwave program, the system that screams control over the ionosphere, high-frequency waves that break the sky, that bounce in the plasma and reach the planet, capable of inducing tremors, capable of generating tsunamis, funded by military forces. Are we being manipulated from the invisible? Or the ultimate weapon hidden? This video starts now.
From a powerful secret radio frequency weapon capable of changing the temperature, causing earthquakes, tsunamis, or creating storms, to mind control probes capable of destroying entire countries, or the official version of a simple weather station operated by the U.S. Air Force with a cost of over $300 million. These are just some of the theories surrounding the HAARP project. But could any of this be possible, even with all the scientific advancements we have today? Could a weapon so powerful exist that it can alter the forces of nature or cause massive destruction? Well, it's just a conspiracy theory. Confidential military files have revealed that there are weapons capable of producing tsunamis. They warn that weather manipulation can have even more devastating effects. These weapons are used to generate earthquakes, droughts, tsunamis, and storms. The HAARP project began in 1993 when construction started on a research station near a town called Gakona in Alaska, after Bill Clinton granted the U.S. Air Force and Navy around $300 million to build a massive structure that included 180 radio, antennas, and high-frequency transmitters spread across 13 hectares. The location of HAARP is strategic. They chose Gakona because it was accessible year-round via the Toe Cutoff Highway, and also because it's a relatively flat area, far from Alaska's major population centers. And most importantly, it's a zone where auroras occur. You've probably seen auroras before. They look like psychedelic light shows in the night sky. This phenomenon occurs only in the ionosphere, and the HAARP project was originally created to study it. The main component of HAARP is an ionospheric research instrument, which is basically the radio antenna array used to send energy in the form of signals to specific points in the ionosphere, provoking small physical changes. This way, artificial plasma structures, light phenomena, and particles like auroras can be created, or beyond that, changes in low-frequency waves that can directly affect communications. They also affect navigation systems and radio signal spectrums. It's like punching the ionosphere. Each high-frequency punch causes the ionosphere to vibrate in unison, transforming direct current into alternating current and behaving like a giant transmitting antenna that bounces the signal back to Earth in extremely low frequency ranges. And this was precisely the U.S. military's interest in the project. They wanted to create signal waves that could be directed into the atmosphere and sent to any point on the planet, like underground tunnels, restricted facilities, or to interfere with enemy communications. We must remember that the U.S. had just come out of the Cold War with the Soviets, and in fact the HAARP project is just one of many created to attempt to control the ionosphere. Or other layers of the planet to exploit space effects on satellites and communications. Let me mention some of these major projects. First, there's Project ROD, which stands for Relocatable Over-the-Horizon Radar. It is similar to HAARP because the idea was to create a mirror-like effect in the ionosphere to detect and redirect intercontinental ballistic missiles. During the Cold War, due to the Earth's curvature, standard radars couldn't detect anything beyond the horizon. ROD antennas sent electromagnetic pulses through the ionosphere that reached farther, and then received signals from aircraft or missiles. Then there's Project Starfish, one of the first attempts to conduct experiments beyond Earth's atmosphere during the so-called space race, when the US wanted to reach the moon before the Soviets. But to leave the planet, one must cross the Van Allen belts, a region filled with highly charged energy particles and radiation, trapped by Earth's magnetic field. The goal was to alter these belts to see if they could stop missiles. So they launched a thermonuclear bomb into the orbit where the NASA space station is today. But the result was disastrous. In fact, the explosion tightened the belts, altered the magnetic field for years, and distorted the atmosphere with a storm of X-rays and gamma rays. Next came Project SPS, which stands for Solar Power Satellite. It began with the idea of creating satellites capable of capturing solar radiation and then transmitting it as microwave beams for use on Earth. Later, this program was adapted to turn those radiation beams into weapons to destroy missiles, aircraft, or to reflect them like a shield to disrupt enemy communications. Even though these programs had military goals, they were always sold to the public as scientific projects rather than warlike ones, because the public is more likely to support programs that benefit society than ones that invent new ways to destroy the world. Things like improving telecommunications performance, harnessing the physical qualities of the atmosphere, and supposedly helping combat climate change. In this last point, HAARP becomes interesting for some and dangerous for others. The pulses emitted by high-frequency antennas are equivalent to 1 billion watts, which penetrate targeted points of the ionosphere and interact with so-called auroral electrojets. These currents exist specifically in the E region of the ionosphere, clustered in plasma ovals that, when disturbed, increase in strength and expand to other latitudes. Normally, this only happens when the electric fields of the ionosphere are altered. And that's exactly what HAARP does. Some say that when this system is activated and releases its electric bursts, they bounce and can reach the Earth. Once they reach the surface, they begin to affect communications and all electronic equipment. The issue is that these electrojet currents also impact the weather, especially during thunderstorms, and it's easy for them to reach the ground and affect phone signals, and of course, power supplies. This is the main foundation of most theories, claiming that the HAARP project is actually a climate weapon, and that the US is capable of using it to provoke storms, hurricanes, droughts, or other natural phenomena. HAARP has often been accused of causing all kinds of meteorological disasters, especially in strategically important locations within hostile nations. There are also groups and theories accusing it of affecting people's minds with electromagnetic wave bursts. According to the document Mind War on Psychological Operations mentioned earlier, ELF, or extremely low frequency waves, have been linked to both physiological disorders and emotional imbalances in humans. Even the famous British band Muse released an album named after HAARP in 2008, with songs like Butterflies and Hurricanes and Supermassive Black Hole that talk about the world is suffering from climate warfare. The root of all these theories lies in the myths surrounding this project, because people see that it's located in a remote, extreme location tied to the US military, and that it is conducting experiments aimed at altering the atmosphere. It's easy to distrust it and come up with alternative theories or doubts about what HAARP really does. One of the main theories claims that this program has the potential to be a geophysical weapon that is one capable of artificially inducing and, more importantly, controlling the destructive energy of Mother Nature in the form of earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes, and volcanic eruptions. Geophysical weapons exist to some extent because it is possible to alter natural processes and harness energy from both our planet and space, such as ultraviolet rays or radiation, and amplify it with instruments to create bombs and chemicals. Atomic bombs are a good example of this, just as HAARP was responsible for provoking the first artificial aurora in history in 2005. It's also true that experiments have been conducted to create artificial magnetic storms. That is why some often say that HAARP is like a giant heater that disturbs the ionosphere with power that could spiral out of control. And if it can be used like a mirror, it is evident it could also target entire regions without anyone noticing, because it would seem like just another natural weather crisis. But this alternative theory gained much more strength when one of the main scientists on the project, Bernard Eastlund, stated that it was indeed capable of controlling global weather through small signals sent to the Van Allen belts, which would then activate larger areas and trigger a chain reaction across both hemispheres of the planet. Eastlund only mentioned it as a possibility, but of course, the consequences would be devastating for everyone. Since then, whenever a major disaster occurs in any country, governments, or at least some of them, sometimes point fingers at the United States and its infamous HAARP weapon, reviving all sorts of theories on social media. For example, in 2018, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro accused the United States of causing the worst earthquake of his century in his country, 7.3 magnitude quake with equally powerful aftershocks, as powerful as the backlash his comments received online. The same has happened in Mexico in recent years, when very strong earthquakes occurred. A large portion of the population, and even some politicians, have blamed HAARP experiments. This is the common denominator in countries that have had, or currently have, political conflicts with the US. Not only in Latin America, Russia and China have repeatedly denounced the hidden purposes of the program. Also in 2010, when Haiti suffered the worst earthquake in its history. The same happened in Japan during the devastating 2011 earthquakes and tsunamis. At first, this may sound like a laughable conspiracy theory, but in reality, the diplomatic and media pressure was so great and serious that the US government was ultimately forced to remove the military from control of the HAARP facilities and transfer them, supposedly, to the University of Alaska Fairbanks in 2014. Supposedly, because they were more interested in other areas of research. But the truth is, they hoped the conspiracies would be buried once and for all. Even though Washington claimed they intended to permanently dismantle everything, the scientific community, both in the US and in partner countries like Canada, Norway and Sweden, opposed the closure because they concluded that HAARP is the most effective tool in existence for studying Earth as ionosphere. But far from ending the suspicions, this only generated more outrage and increased public interest in uncovering the secrets behind HAARP and why it was considered so valuable despite being so dangerous. This led to the theory that the project never had good intentions, but was instead a tool preparing world powers for an alleged climate war. And that, in fact, the war has already been underway for years, especially against the Middle East. For example, in 2020, during serious tensions between Donald Trump's administration and Iran, some people accused the US of causing earthquakes near the Bushehr nuclear plant on the Persian Gulf Coast, a direct attack that could have ended in an even greater tragedy. According to some detractors, the technology used by HAARP before its closure in 2014 would not have been capable of reaching these areas. But ever since it was transferred to civilian institutions, they are said to have received funding for campaigns disguised as scientific experiments or academic projects. But what does official science say about all these theories? Is it possible that HAARP is something far more powerful than a mere weather station? The first thing they say is that many of the theories about the HAARP project lack verifiable scientific evidence. That is, while some ideas may have a bit of logical plausibility, no one has been able to prove anything when it comes to strange phenomena. Also, the different colored lights, like those of the auroras, that occasionally appear during earthquakes, such as those seen in Mexico in recent years on September 19th, have led social media to flood with videos and posts from people claiming that these tremors were caused from the ionosphere via the HAARP project altering the sky's color. But in this particular case, the scientific explanation holds that this is an electromagnetic effect in certain rocks when they're affected by seismic waves, causing them to act like conductors, carrying energy to the surface. But is it possible for HAARP's effects to generate hurricanes or trigger volcanoes to attack other countries? Atmospheric scientists say that hurricanes are known to reach 15 or 16 kilometers in height. That is, they remain in the lower troposphere, the same layer of the planet we live in, which is too far for HAARP's radio waves to reach. Various scientists also claim that triggering volcanic eruptions from the ionosphere is even more unlikely, because volcanoes are actually activated from the endosphere, an inner layer of Earth, the exact opposite of the atmosphere. The truth is that humanity has never tested volcano explosions, because like earthquakes, they depend on internal tectonic movement and magma buildup, which happens tens of kilometers beneath the ionosphere. Still, if none of this is true, another big question remains. If the ionosphere cannot be used as a deadly climate weapon, then why have different scientific outlets accused China and Russia of replicating HAARP-like installations to conduct controversial joint experiments in the ionosphere? Are these joint experiments truly for the good of humanity, or are they part of a secret yet to be revealed? I'll be reading your comments.